Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
And welcome, everybody, to Morning Magazine for this June 3rd, 2020. Your host, James J. Malouf here. Today, for the entire hour, we are joined by the Wood County Sheriff's Department. We have with us Sheriff Becker. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
And you brought a friend in with you. We have Office Manager Kelly Trzynski.
Yes.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah,
Wow.
you did. Thank you.
First crack.
Yeah, it's nice. It's great to have you with us, Kelly. Thanks for joining us. We also want to say hello, of course, to our friend Kevin and everybody over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. We appreciate you guys joining us, as always. First off, I'll start with you, Sheriff. How are you and yours doing? How's everybody been holding up?
We're doing okay under the circumstances. We're moving forward. It's just going back the last few months with the virus and how that impacted law enforcement and just how we were approaching that, and with the changes, it seemed like things were changing weekly with that as far as what law enforcement's role was. And we're really happy that the Supreme Court came out with something, because that gave us the direction. Where does law enforcement fit in this equation with the virus? The virus is out there. I hope people still understand that it has not gone away. I know the health department was doing testing last night up in Marshfield and had almost 200 people come. They're going to continue to do the testing. Our National Guard has been super to work with us on that. So people just have to understand that the virus is still out there. So please practice the social distancing, washing your hands, stick to the essential travel. Those kind of things we still need to follow and move forward with the recommendations that our local health department puts out. Yeah. Because we're clearly not out of the woods right now with the virus. And then with the tragedy that happened in Minneapolis, law enforcement's hurting right now. Our department's hurting. What happened in Minneapolis is unacceptable, and now we're seeing a lot of the protesting. And it hurts. It really, really hurts. You can't justify what happened. I do want to say, at least with the Minneapolis Police Department quickly, removing the officers involved. And furthermore, the officer that took, George Floyd's life is in custody. Those situations, don't happen very fast when, law enforcement is involved. Usually there's an investigation. They take time, but this is a situation that the people aren't waiting for time. All right. The people at Culver, they don't feel safe right now, and I get it. And this is something that we're going to work on together and move forward with to make changes. Change takes time, and we have to accept that for now. But yesterday we had a peaceful protest at the courthouse. I have to really thank and show a lot of appreciation for the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department and Chief Blevins, the organizer. He reached out to immediately once a Facebook event was put out, and just had an open conversation what the expectations are. Hey, we're here to support you as well and keep you safe. And we had some good conversations with the organizer, Patience Bueller, and it went well yesterday. We didn't have a lot of numbers, but they stuck out. Some very, very warm weather and no issues, and it was a peaceful event. We even walked with them a few blocks from the courthouse around the River Block building and back. The mayor, our mayor here in Wisconsin Rapids, Shane Blazer, walked with us, and again, a very peaceful event. And you look at those types of protests that are peaceful, I feel that's how we can get things done together.
We've, first off, I appreciate so much you opening the conversation, and you always being the guy that you are. You're the perfect man for this job, if you ask me, because there is nothing that you are not afraid to talk about, and we need that transparency now more than ever in this day and age. And we have had, whether it is the women's rights movement and the riots during that, or the Stonewall riots with gay men, with other riots we've had over race before. We have seen these things before in our country, and we have seen peaceful protesting in our country. Mm-hmm. And we're as Americans, we have this freedom and this ability. The problem is when the rioting turns violent, and when these things get out of go in a direction that is taking away from the message and taking away from the cause, and gets muddied in the cause. And one of the things that we can do is, I saw some people on social media saying, well, why would they have a protest here in Rapids? We don't have any reason to do that. We're not worrying about that. It's part of all of our responsibility as American citizens to recognize what's going on, not just in Minnesota, not just us in the Midwest, but throughout the whole country, because this makes us all look bad. You and I have talked about this off air plenty of times, actually, where we've talked about bad officers and how you guys more than anybody want to call them out, want to hold them accountable. They make your job that much tougher, which nobody wants their job to be tougher. So I understand that talking with you and everything, but it's so important for other listeners to not only know that you have our back and that you have everybody's back and these kind of things, but that we as a society, we have each other's back. That, up there in Minnesota, we may not like your football team, but we root for you. Like, it's one thing to disagree with each other with football teams and things like that and stuff. That's all fun and everything. But when it comes to down to it, we're all Americans. We're all in this team together. We're all on the same side, and there is an importance going on in our country right now of showing what side of the line you're on this. And you can do that nonviolently. You can do that with your words. Words oftentimes are a lot stronger than any violent action you can cause. And the message gets through. And really that's what should be important, is getting the message across. So I can't thank you enough for touching on that, and especially for letting us know how the protest in Rapids here went yesterday.
No, I'm very proud of all the people that did come, and having very, very good conversations, open conversations with them, and then even going back a few days, I know that there was a protest in Wausau, very peaceful. And like I'd mentioned, that's how we can make this change happen. We're all hurting in this. I mean, we are. There's watching the video was sickening and hurtful, and the changes that, or just the feelings that it created. And now look at where we're at, in the midst of a virus that is still there, and you look at that impact and what that's going to happen. I was talking with our, health department director this morning, and we'll see what kind of impact that's going to have on cases as we move forward. So it's really troubling times right now, but we're working together to get through them. And again, hats off to the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, reaching out to us. We put together a plan how we're going to move forward with this, and worked out really well. And especially with patients who put this protest together, and just having the willingness to talk with us, have an open communication, a conversation that we can throw out what our expectations are and what their expectations are, listening on both sides. And we got through yesterday, and again, very very happy that it was very peaceful, and the message was sent. There was a lot of people that drove by, honking horns, just saying things that we support you, just showed that our community was together.
One of the beauties that we have as Americans is we can do two things at once. We can have half our country support a war and half our country protest a war. And the way the rest of the world sees us as not warmongers or weak. It sees us as a mix. It is very similar to this. You can be against police brutality and still support police officers. You can. It is not a tough line to decide. There's not it shouldn't overwork your brain to have that thought in your head. And anybody who go watch an Old West movie and see what it's like without our law enforcement, for 5 seconds, and see how that goes. There are certain factors here that are important, and this is for me. As a kid who grew up with some police brutality, I experienced it before. I had friends experience it, and I can tell you a really quick story of one of the last times it happened to me when I was in the city and as a young kid, and being called derogatory names and things like that, and my friends being called it, and the officer that did those things left us, and we were knuckleheads. I'll own up to that right away. The guy stopped us for a reason. We were knuckleheads. He took things way too far. A day later, his partner came down to our neighborhood, not a safe neighborhood, came down to our neighborhood off duty and talked to us as kids and told us that wasn't right. And this is, I want to say, early 90s, it's something that you cannot group any grouping together and say, well, one person makes it all bad. That is not the case with any factor in any society, in any grouping we're talking about, whether it's police officers or minorities or anything like that. You've got to be able to have a bigger brain than that. You just do. There's no excuse for it anymore. You've got to be able to have two thoughts in your head at once, and even if they're contradicting. Right. There is no segue into this, but we do want to talk to Kelly and put her on the spot.
Kelly started her career with us in 2007 as a corrections officer, and then moved up to our front office, and she's been our office manager for the past several years. She's the boss. She makes sure that the reports are getting done, things are getting filed appropriately, setting appointments up, and just the inner workings of the sheriff's department are followed through our front office. And so it's a big task, and she's been doing just an outstanding job the last few years, even through the transition the last 17 months has been great, and just a true pleasure to have on our staff to make us all look good.
We appreciate that, Kelly. I appreciate the work that you're doing over there. It's so vital. The workers, oftentimes behind the curtain that we don't see all the time. With law enforcement, these guys are on the streets, and we see them every day and such. The people like yourself working behind the scenes are just as vital. I had a listener a week or so ago said, "Hey, I really like what you're doing on the air," and she started mentioning that she liked the scheduling of the programs and the morning show guests and all this, and she's going on, and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that's what Pam does. Like, I appreciate the compliment, but you should be complimenting Pam. She's the one that does this stuff. We don't get to highlight her very often, but Pam's the heart of this place. There's no way I'm doing this job or able to do this job without what she's doing out there. It's so vital, that kind of work. Kelly, we appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and it was her birthday.
Oh, boy.
And now we're all going to sing Happy Birthday.
No, please don't.
Sing, right? We tried karaoke not long ago, and my wife looked at me, and I'm like, all right, no.
I feel like we're doing her more of a favor by not singing it. I actually feel like
well, you can sing, James. I'm good with that, but I'll hum, and we'll be all right.
Where else did you want to go with the conversation, Shawn?
Well, tomorrow we've got an event going, with a lot of the larger events getting canceled as we, most of the larger stuff, anything like fairs and things like that. The summer could be boring, but at least we can get out. At least some things were lifted that it's not like we're stuck at home, but there's things that we can still go out and do. But tomorrow, one thing that we're doing as law enforcement officers is a torch run. We're kind of ad-libbing our own because obviously the summer games were canceled. So I got to give a little bit more credit to the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department. Detective Eric Dobbin put together kind of our own torch run from Marshfield to Wisconsin Rapids. So we're going to do that tomorrow. There were some T-shirt sales that we were doing along with Challenge Coins, so we were raising some money for Special Olympics, but tomorrow that's going to be pretty much most of our day, but I at least wanted to mention that that's going to happen. A few of us from the Sheriff's Department are going to go. Obviously, several people from Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, Marshfield Police Department, Port Edwards Police Department. We'll have a pretty good representation. It's a little longer bike ride, which I'm not really excited about, but I don't think it's as hilly as the one going from, normally we would do Wisconsin Rapids to Stevens Point. So it'll be a little different this year, but it'll be still something that we can, honor that partnership that we have with Special Olympics. It's a lot, like I've mentioned it, I don't know how many times on the show before, that partnership has been several years. It's just so strong, and that's one of the tougher things for me personally when you see those events like this that we enjoy, have to get canceled for now. This is the way that we can, do something. And Cole Cleworth, he's gonna have me. I'm gonna have him come with me tomorrow, or we're gonna do a separate thing, either a walk or something we had talked about doing. So, that's gonna go on tomorrow. Starting at 10 a.m. We're leaving Marshfield. hopefully, depending on the pace, we'll be back in Wisconsin Rapids by about 1 o'clock. I'll probably need a nap.
Yeah, definitely.
You said a.m.?
10 a.m. to...
No, like 1 a.m. You'll be
Yeah,
back.
that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking, Kelly. Yeah.
I don't get what you're saying. No, so we've got that going on tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that. Got a lot of requests for birthday drive-bys, which is cool. When we can do them, we'll send patrol over to, you feel terrible with the situation on with our seniors and all of our high schools. But, kids that just can't have those, larger birthday parties that mean so much to them. Yeah. I love getting the requests, and we try to get them as often as we can with the people that are working. So we've got, one today, a couple on Saturday, one on Sunday. That's going on, and those are, I think, great PR opportunities for us, and honoring the kids that just can't. It's just not normal right now for them, but that's a way that we can give back.
That PR part of things can't be taken lightly in this day and age, and the things we were just talking about. So, it's certainly noteworthy there. But the things that come to me especially when I hear you talk about this, like the drive by for the birthdays and things like that, is it's so mutually beneficial. It is something that these kids, we all know that as we get older, birthdays mean less and less. Kelly just threw hers away like it was nothing. But as when you're young, boy, do they mean a lot. Yeah. And to during what we have going on here, maybe they can't have the big birthday party that they normally would. But it still becomes special because, I remember my 6th birthday when the complete sheriff's department drove by and that kind of thing. So all of a sudden, instead of it becoming, I remember my 6th birthday, nobody, was able to come by. We had a cake, that was it or something. It becomes a great memory. It becomes a good memory instead of just a gray one or a negative one.
Right.
And that is beneficial to those children and those families, certainly, but just to you guys as well. I hear it in your voice. You often, more times than not, on the job, you guys are seeing people on their worst day. Yeah. When you have opportunities like this to be able to, that's good for you guys, too. It's good for your mental health. It's good for, just as a human being, that feels good, I imagine. And to touch on the Special Olympics thing, too, years back when I was working at a station in California, we did an event with the Special Olympics, and it was the first time I worked with them. And when I talk about mutually beneficial things, that's the first thing I think of, because we did this and we're not, it's not a paid event or anything. It's a mutual thing where we're helping them, they're advertising us, that kind of thing. We get there and I completely forgot to do my job half the time I was there. I was so excited to be around these kids and these people. I'm not kidding. I missed jumping on the air for 30 seconds. I should have been on the air and there was 30 seconds of dead air because I'm busy talking to this kid, helping him tie his shoes and everything. And he's telling me I'm not doing it right and stuff. And I had to do the bunny thing with him. And it was just so much. It was so great. And it's one of my favorite moments I've ever been a part of in radio. And when you work with those kids, and part of the reason I bring it up is anybody that's ever asked to volunteer or anything like that, consider them, because the Special Olympics, the people involved in those things are doing so good things, and these people involved in it, the athletes, are so much fun. They're so much fun to be around. I don't know how you can't feel better about the world after you've been around them.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I've talked about it before. Just the summer games, that opening ceremony. If you have never been to it, you should, because all the athletes from every region are coming in, and then you have just a mob of law enforcement officers, putting together a human tunnel. And each region gets invited, and all you're doing is high-fiving, shaking hands, and just seeing smiles.
Yeah. From
all different ages. It's probably one of my favorite moments, just being in uniform.
Yeah,
just to see again, that partnership, and then it brings it all together. When you're doing, I know we're not doing a lot of the fundraising now, but it makes it all worth it at that time when you get to see, several athletes from around the state. So that's going to be a tough one to miss this year, but we're going to try to, move forward and do something on our own tomorrow that will recognize our local athletes, and just a huge cause.
Would you mind touching that again, what you guys have going on tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow, 10 a.m., we're doing a bike ride from Marshfield to Wisconsin Rapids. We're not going to be on a lot of the main routes just for safety reasons, but we'll have about 20 local law enforcement officers taking that bike trip. Just in honor of all of our athletes that are local here.
We're speaking with Wood County Sheriff Shawn Becker. Also, we have Kelly Trzynski, Office Manager, here with us, and Kevin from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. We're going to take a short break and be back with more with the gang here on Morning Magazine, AM 1320, WFHR. And welcome everybody back to Morning Magazine, Part 2 for this June 3rd, 2020. Sheriff Shawn Becker with us today. We also have Kelly Trzynski, Office Manager over there at the department with us, and our friend Kevin from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media here. I don't know if you guys got a chance to hear or not, but we've been celebrating our 2020 grads for our high school classes around here and just trying to give a bit of a spotlight on them and the kids and such. And they're not the only ones graduating, though. We've had some inmates that have graduated as well.
Yeah, recently we partnered with Mid-State Technical College on putting together some inmate programming, some continuing education opportunities for people that are in custody. And we've talked before about this, that a commitment that we've made is, with the people that are in custody that made mistakes in our community, why not give them opportunities to better themselves while they're in custody, and then once they get released, have some better opportunities to succeed, so they're not coming back. We would need to work on that recidivism rate, and this is one of those pieces. So we're really happy. Several months ago, Mid-State came to us with an educational opportunity for people in custody, and we took it and ran with it. And we had over 40 people participating in the program, and we had 8 of those just recently graduate from a career development program that Mid-State put together. Got to really call out instructor Tricia Zroik, who put this program together on her own. She, and if anybody's taught before, and if you're tasked with developing the curriculum, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So she did an outstanding job of putting that together, and then working with our staff. Lieutenant Melissa Sager, who's been on the show before, she was the go-between, making sure that this program succeeded, and worked with Tricia to get the material. And especially when COVID hit, we had to really change, because we were not allowing the programming for people to come into the jail to teach. So that's where Melissa really stepped up and made sure material was getting brought in for the inmates to continue on with this career development course. So we had 8 people graduate. We had a little ceremony a couple weeks ago with recognizing the inmates that got through it. And another important thing that I noticed is we had Three Bridges come in with some counseling services for for inmates that were struggling with addiction, and one inmate went through that program and then went through this one. So that's taking that opportunity that going through a tough time, but taking the opportunity to better themselves. It's nice to see our inmates looking at these programs and being involved with them and utilizing their time while they're in custody, and hopefully once they get out, they have the opportunity now with Mid-State to continue their education. They got credit. They can work on their GED. There's just a lot of opportunities ahead of themselves. It's just the unfortunate thing right now with the virus, we really had to limit our in and out traffic in the jail, and this program happened right in the middle of it, but we made it work. So that partnership with Mid-State is huge, and you really look at what you have locally to offer, where we can make positive changes in people's lives, and Mid-State is an obvious one. They're blocks away. They had a program, they came to us, and it was huge. And I look forward to continuing that program, along with Three Bridges and other evidence-based programs that we can help people out.
Encouragement costs nothing, but it can mean everything. And the difference of a person at that low point in their life, having nobody believe in them, and somebody believe in them is a game changer. But belief is such an interesting thing, because you can have things where there's no science or facts involved, but you still believe. You still have faith in somebody. And these are people that need it more than ever. And it's not to say that every single person is going to respond to it, but the majority of them will. The majority of people are not interested in being in this, as we've touched on before, the revolving door of I get incarcerated, I do my time, I get out, I'm right back in. That doesn't do society, it doesn't do anybody any good. You guys are not a business. You are not looking at, it's not that kind of thing. You are in the business of protecting people. You're in the business of caring and these kind of things. And that when you have people at the top that look at it that way, that trickles down, that has an effect that goes all the way to those inmates. This is evidence of that. This is such good proof of that. Not everybody has things like this in their communities that are caring about people that, quite frankly, most people throw away. Like you do one bad thing, you're done. Even though we're all taught that you're not supposed to judge and that you are supposed to give people the benefit of the, a second chance and those kind of things. We're Americans. We love second chances. It's one of the things that we're, biggest stories that we have. So-and-so is out for, has a break and they come back and they're great and all these things. But we don't do it for ourselves on individual basis very often. We don't do it for our community members, our fellow, people out there. We need more of that. I'm not saying that every single case is a case that, some people lost causes. Right. I mean, that's a fact.
Still try.
But you still got to try. Exactly, man. You still have to try, because what is the worst thing that happens? You try and it doesn't work out? Okay, at least we tried. At least you gave it a shot. Right. This is a reach of a comparison, but I look at it very similar to when I tell friends, that I don't know how to talk to girls. I don't know how to go up and ask a girl for a date. Just talk to her. Just talk to her. If you ask her and she says no, it's okay. You didn't. It's not like you lost a year of your life doing this or something. The worst thing that happens is you take a little hit into the ego and you keep moving. It's one of these things where it's worth the shot. It's worth the chance to try to rehabilitate people, to try to help people rehabilitate themselves and empower themselves. These are great examples of that. It's really cool to hear.
It's a commitment that we 17 months ago wanted to go on. We're going to continue with that, with this type of programming. And you're right. I look at it, if we help one person once they get released from custody back into our community and they're going to be a success, that's a win. Yeah. It's all it takes is one person. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the connection with addiction and mental health, and that how that just comes together, and those are the focuses that we're working on back in our jail, because that's the issues that we're seeing in our community. And those are huge issues, and we have a duty and obligation to do this, mm-hmm. in my opinion. And we're part of the piece of the puzzle here, and we can have an impact on our community and set people at least in the path of success, and that's what it's all about.
Most communities in the country have one way or another a drug issue, whether it's in their community or it's in a neighboring community or something like that. Mm-hmm. And all that varies on what type of drug it is or what have you. But overall, an umbrella look at it, they have that issue. Yeah. And one of the first things people say is, we've got to take care of this and everything. One of the ways you take care of that is by doing these kind of things, giving people another window, another opportunity. And instead of just turning to crime and drugs and things like that, they have something else to turn to. You really want change, this is part of it. It isn't an overnight thing. It isn't something that happens with a snap of the fingers or something. It takes work. And people like Melissa, like the people over at Midstate, like yourselves over there, everybody involved in this to make these things happen, and the inmates themselves too, to want to change, to want to strive for this and everything. So everybody involved, kudos. It's really great.
Well, they're taking their time there, and they're seeing that there's an option now, and they're taking the time that they're spending in with us and trying to make themselves better. And you said it exactly, James. Kudos to the inmates that are realizing that they're at a tough point in their life, all right? And here's an option that we're providing. Why not take advantage of it?
Yeah.
Maybe they'd never have gone to any type of addiction counseling services. All right, we offer that now. Maybe they never saw a counselor before. We have that. We have that partnership with Aspire is another. You look at the local partnerships you create. I just think that makes us so much better.
Yeah.
So those opportunities are there when people make mistakes and they do come to custody. We have some opportunities to help them out.
Especially with what we were just kind of touching on there with issues with drugs and different things in different communities. You guys got an important grant recently as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to report. Last night we got word that we received the COPS federal grant for the next 3 years starting 2021. We have fully funded a drug investigator that we're going to add to our staff, and that's fully funded from the federal COPS grant. And that doesn't happen very often. Mm-hmm. Normally there's a match, and then we have to ask the county board to say, okay, we got 80%, we got to kick in 20. This is 100% for 3 years. So I got to really give it to, Captain Quentin Ellis. He was the one that authored the majority of the grant. We had some help from Daniel Luther. But, Quentin did an outstanding job. You just, when you put an application for grant, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And to hear that, it's 100% funded for 3 years, that's going to give us an opportunity to make a difference, out there. I mean, we have one drug investigator now. Most of the agencies, the larger ones, have two, because the problem is there. We can't ignore it. The only thing that throughout my career that I've seen change is trends, and you had mentioned that. And right now the trend is mostly meth, but heroin's still there.
Huge.
We were talking about it this morning that where this position is going to help fit is bringing not only enforcement into the picture, because you can't. One thing I have to make it very clear: you can't arrest the problem away. And going back to the programs and things like that, but a position like this, we're going to utilize a lot of community awareness. In the last 3 weeks, we went to a residence 3 different times for overdoses. One person did overdose and die, and then another person overdosed a couple times. I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That we need to really seriously work on. And here we've got a great opportunity that we've got some funding coming our way to support a position for 3 years. That's huge. Especially here in central Wisconsin. Normally, a lot of these federal grants will go to the larger cities because there is a need there. But that's where I really have to thank the people that got us the grant or had some influence with it. Now we got something here in central Wisconsin that we can capitalize on, and it even segue into our canine unit, which I know that's a really big component of that is drug enforcement. We had Whitetails Unlimited give us $10,000 toward a dog, so we're going to add a dog. We're going to have 3.
That's great.
And then you add the PR piece to that, the drug awareness piece with
Right.
What we're educating the public with, what these dogs can do, and that partnership that we're getting again with community members is just it's huge.
And when it comes to bringing this added position to it and everything, how does that change things for you guys with being able to cover that subject and being able to work on that and with the drug issue and necessarily is it kind of just an addition of an extra set of eyes? Is it more more hours available, that sort of thing, and maybe even giving the one person that is on the job a bit of some support?
Yeah, good question. It's a lot of what you said. The 2 biggest things to take away from here are, one, enforcement, all right, because people do have to be held accountable, especially people that deal in our community. And then 2 is the community awareness. I think those go really hand in hand, where we can get out and do presentations in our schools. Now it's not just down to one drug investigator. We'll have 2 people that can work on that together, because it's our drug investigator right now is very, very busy, Kyle Pleat. But one thing is there's a team approach to this. It's not just our law enforcement agency. It's not the sheriff's department. We're working very closely with Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, Marshfield Police Department, because a lot of these investigators, just think of it, a drug dealer doesn't stick to one area. It's affecting all of us. So that teamwork approach is going to continue. Now we're just adding another person to the team, and that's only going to make us better. And we got some really good people at our agency that are interested in the position. So what's going to be hard for us is finding that person that's going to fit into what our expectations are.
And one of the parts of that, the group effort that you're talking about there, does include the community. Does include the community noticing these things, keeping. Oftentimes, these guys, these people hide in plain sight. They hide in what you might call quote unquote a nice neighborhood. One of the biggest misleading things about this stuff is that. It's like when I was a kid and they were telling us to, the people to worry about as far as sexual abuse was the guy in the trench coat under the spotlight at night and stuff. And while it came from a good place, we had a generation of kids that grew up, and that's all they were worried about was that guy. They weren't worried about the bad relative or the babysitter or these kind of things. And we've seen a similar thing happen with the drug culture as far as, shows like Breaking Bad and things like that have kind of romanticized a lot of this stuff. And for people, I'll tell you, as somebody, being blunt about it, as somebody who grew up on that other side of things, there's nothing romantic about it. There's nothing cool about it. I'm extremely fortunate to have my dad right now. There's no statistical reason why that man should be around. But I'm lucky to have him. And who's even more lucky are my nephews and my kids in that. He has turned his life completely around and gone a complete different direction.
Something to celebrate.
It's so rare that happens. Mm-hmm. It is one of those things where more times than not, it doesn't end that way. And these people that pry on other people, they are the lowest form of businessmen. Mm-hmm. They are not in this for any reasons other than profit and money. They don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about the community. None of these things. They don't care about their clients, quote unquote. They're in this for the money. And that kind of thing we should have no problem calling out. We should have no issue dropping a dime or whatever you want to say. This idea that it started especially in urban areas where snitching is wrong and snitches get all these different things. There is a difference between loyalty and between somebody hurting your neighborhood, somebody hurting your neck of the woods where you live. That there is no shame in calling somebody out on that. That is, and that goes back to my old neighborhood. That goes back to city. As far as that kind of urban myth that exists about not snitching or something. That's a lie. I could think of 2 cases in my head where we had a child molester in our neighborhood. That guy was gone within hours. It's something that you shouldn't hesitate, because you guys can't do it all on your own, especially when I don't think a lot of us realize there was one guy, basically, not just one guy, but one guy kind of in charge of this. That's a heck of a task, for any community, let alone a community that has issues. Yeah. It's rough. So to hear he has some backup coming, to hear you guys have some backup coming, that is some really good news. That's great to hear.
I have to thank the people that were involved in getting us the grant, and again, going to Captain Quentin Ellis, who was tasked with writing the grant. And we, once the notification was put out to all law enforcement that these grants were available, we're like, it's the first thing that we thought of. We haven't put in for it before. I'm like, well, why not? And then he jumped on it. Like I said, had a little bit of assistance, and submitted it, and we're like, there's no way we're getting it, just because of look at what's going on during in our country right now. Yeah. We're just thinking of the virus now, this other terrible situation that we're dealing with. So that was just outstanding news to hear yesterday. That gives us a direction of, hey, we've got something that we can focus on even more. That position is going to be a drug investigator, and we'll get out in the community even more than what we're doing now, just to do the awareness, piece, which is just as important as the enforcement side of things.
And piggyback off that, you mentioned the new canine coming by. That's some really good news too.
Yeah, we had budgeted. We knew that we had to replace Toro this year. We had mapped that out on when he was going to be ready to retire and be a pet. And enjoy the last, few years of his life as a pet with the pigeon family. Jim wanted another dog, so we last year when we put our budget together, we set aside money for that. And so he went, and we went to a new vendor, Giuseppe Kennels, down in Dodge County, which is just, I know I brought it up before, but is awesome because now we have a good vendor in our state. Otherwise, we were sending people to Indiana, South Carolina. Yeah. Now we've got a reputable vendor that has some local ties here that we can utilize, and that's where Jim went, and he brought Sig back, and it's going great. And so we decided, we got another great, outstanding donation from not just Whitetails Unlimited. I mean, that's canine programs we do get some really good donations from community members, and that's awesome because those are very expensive programs to run. We put it out to our department, our patrol division, to see if somebody wanted to be a handler, and we had a lot of interest. And then Justice Arndt was picked to be our next canine handler, and he'll be going to the next class that we'll send him to. Will be in this fall down to Dodge County to Giuseppe Kennels. Try saying that 10 times.
Right, I was just going to say, yeah. The dog that's retiring, Toro? Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. So did Toro get a watch? A retirement watch? It's like a given. Every time you retire, you get a watch.
Like a party, but we knew that at the time we couldn't have like a big gathering, so we had a send off at the sheriff's department. His family came to the sheriff's department and kind of handed him off to his kids, and he'll have a happy retirement. Toro's been with us for several years. He started with Joe Zerflu, had him for a number of years, and then didn't want to be part of the program. He had a different path he's going with the sheriff's department. He's doing an outstanding job. And then Jim stepped up and said, hey, I want to be part of this program, and then transitioned with Toro to be the handler, and then had a great relationship together for many years. We got around 10 years out of Toro, and that's a lot for a canine.
Yeah.
Usually they last, as far as working wise, around 8 years. We've had a couple of tough times in our canine unit where we had a couple of them pass away from cancer. So you just never know what you're going to get as far as how many years of service out of them. And we were very, very fortunate to have Toro, and he's going to enjoy a few years of family fun.
And they're such a vital part of the team, and what you guys do, certainly with what they're able to do with sniffing things out and all that stuff. But the other end of it, of what the mental support that you get from having him in the precinct and having these dogs around.
Love them.
Right.
When they come in.
We don't get to think about that very often, but you guys just in studio, if you will, having the dogs around and that, it's just a good vibe and it's a good feeling. But also something that you touched on before with the PR end of things. PR isn't always about public relations and making people look good. Sometimes it's about making people feel good. And in this day and age, more than ever, we want our children growing up feeling they're comfortable talking to law enforcement, that there is no hesitation whatsoever or anything. Dogs help with that. Kids like dogs. It's breaking news. I apologize if you weren't sitting down when I said that, but it's one of those things. Kids like dogs. Yeah. So it helps bridge that gap and make it more and more comfortable for kids to come up to you guys and talk and all that kind of stuff. There's no downside to this. And congratulations to Toro on a great career.
Yeah, thank you. Really,
it's really good to hear.
Appreciate it. We like to socialize our canine unit, not just with the public, but our staff. Like Kelly just mentioned, both our canine handlers, Jim and Brandon Christensen, they're encouraged to bring their partner in to socialize. Let the other deputies, other staff get the opportunity to see them. That don't even in the car all the time. I mean, they're an animal and they want to see people too. Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're still dogs. Again, we are speaking with the Wood County Sheriff's Department and our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. And with us, we're going to take a really short break, come back with more on Morning Magazine, AM 1320, WFHR. 72 in Stevens Point and Marshfield, 71 in Wausau, and here in Wisconsin Rapids, where we're wrapping up Morning Magazine. We have the Wood County Sheriff's Department in with us. We have Sheriff Shawn Becker, of course, and Kelly Trzynski, Office Manager over at the department, and our good friend Kevin and everybody over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media hanging out as well. Had some interesting stuff going on in Buren. I wanted to mention.
Got a construction project that's going on that is really creating some traffic concerns for the residents out there. So we've taken quite a few complaints, speeding complaints, talking with the village there to try to work out a plan to make it safer out there, and working with our highway department. Really got to thank Roland Hawk to, sit down and be part of at least trying to make it safer out there. Basically, the main thoroughfare, or Eagle Road coming into Buren off of 54, is under construction right now, and it's going to be until September. The problem with that is you don't realize how much traffic coming in and out of the mill there. It happens a day, every day. So there is a reroute put out on taking 80th Street, County Highway U, all the way in through the new development, the Bridgewater development over in Buren, coming all the way across to right along the Wisconsin River to the mill. People weren't used to a lot of that traffic, especially the semi-traffic. And then people even driving in the area were getting confused. I mean, a lot of the semi-traffic isn't used to coming in there, so they weren't taking the detour route. And there's a couple other routes that just are not, those roads aren't, they don't have the ability to handle that much traffic, especially the heavy traffic. So we've been working together and lowered the speed limit on South Buren Drive, got that down to 25. Obviously, the sheriff's department is providing as much patrol out there as we can, just to not just cite people, but educate people. Like, hey, slow down. This is an area that's heavily traveled by bicyclists, pedestrians, because it's a very attractive area. And you got the river right there. You have a new development that is bringing a lot of interest in. So we're working on that. It's going to continue to go on for at least until, like I said, September. There'll be different phases of the construction project. They'll open up traffic here and there. But right now, probably the next couple weeks, it's going to be the toughest time. Again, thanking Roland Hawk from our highway department for taking the step to lower the speed limit in part of the area. We closed down part of 48th Street just because it's all gravel. And just imagine putting semi-traffic on that, or even more traffic, car traffic coming in and out of the mill. People on shifts where that road almost needed to be graded every day. It was unsafe. So we shut that down. We talked to our local fire departments, recently. So there's a plan in action if there's emergency services that need to come out there. But it's that closure really was a small effect to the people out there, and it's going to make it safer. So we've got a few months to go, and I've encouraged everybody that if they're having issues with more traffic at certain times to call us. We've got some really good conversations and communication with people that are living out there, and we'll just have to, we'll get through it.
Have you noticed, especially since specifically since the pandemic happened, and then we had this time where we weren't getting out as much, and then as people started getting out more and more, it really feels like a lot of people have forgotten to use their turn signal. It really just seems like in little things like that, as far as driving down the middle of the road basically instead of being on the side more, those kind of things. I feel like I've noticed it a lot more. Or maybe it's just people wanting to mess with me. I don't know. I can't tell. But have you gotten an uptick? This is some big elaborate inside joke on you guys. Kudos, have you noticed any uptick in that or anything, or complaints about it?
No, not like I said, with this project in itself, the primary complaint has been, number one, the semi-traffic is more noticeable in a certain area that it wasn't, and of course you would see that. When you see a 53-foot trailer, being pulled by a truck, you're not normally seeing that. You're normally seeing just people walking, and then the speed, and when you're normally not seeing much traffic, you don't really estimate what the speed of somebody's going, and then all of a sudden you're seeing more and more traffic, and it appears to be speeding. And it's like, okay, let's look at some opportunities to make something safer here, because what really worries me a lot is the pedestrian and bike traffic, because that's a route that I take when we're out in the area, just because it's very scenic. And then you put now pedestrian and bicycle traffic with heavy truck traffic and more motor vehicle traffic, and you have something scenic. Is everybody paying attention to the road? So what we can do together to avoid a tragedy, that's what we're working on. There'll be a couple more months of getting used to this and some frustration, but a couple months, we can get through that.
If you wouldn't mind one more time touching on the event that you guys have going on tomorrow, the bike riding.
Yeah, we're going from Marshfield to Wisconsin Rapids in honor of Special Olympics, kind of doing our own local torch run with local law enforcement officers. So we'll be biking that distance starting at 10 a.m. from Marshfield and ending up here in Wisconsin Rapids.
I wish you guys luck with it. I hope it goes well, and appreciate this.
Could you bring us oxygen?
Yes. I've got oxygen and water. Kevin's going to cover water. I've got oxygen, so we'll just be riding right alongside you with that. And I have to say, I noticed you got a card over there.
We've talked about my habit of collecting sports cards, and I've got a 1974 Mike Schmidt Topps card, and it's a little bit of history with this. Ron Carlson, retired Stevens Point police officer. He's actually an administrator. He's a lieutenant. But when I started my career, one of the reasons why I became a law enforcement officer was because of Ron. He probably doesn't know this, so I don't know if he's listening, but I'll see if we can get him to at least hear the shout out. But he defined community service. He was the community service officer there, and I was a loss prevention investigator at Mills Fleet Farm, and connection kind of built from there, and then that interest in law enforcement about what it's really about, community service. He exemplified that, and he's a card collector. So what great partnership. So I had a Ted Williams 1959 card that I had gotten, and he needed that card. And he had one that wasn't as good a shape, but he goes, here, I'll sweeten the deal for you. You give me yours for mine, and I'll throw this in. So I had it graded, and I still have had it in my collection ever since. So big hats off to Ron, and one of the good cops out there, one of the really good cops. And, I want to end on, we're going through tough times right now, and my heart is out to the Floyd family. We'll get through this. It's going to take time, but I'm very sorry. We're all hurting, but we'll all get through this.
Well said, and I appreciate the story too, sharing with that. That's interesting. Nice to hear some backstory there of you too. I like that. I want to thank, of course, Kevin, Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, our friends over there. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you very much for being in with us. We appreciate everything you're doing for our community, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Sheriff Becker, as always, a wonderful talking with you, man. It's always good talking with you. And I thank you both for everything you guys are doing. Keep up the good work and stay safe and strong. We'll talk again real soon.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
again.
Thank you.
And we will be back with more Morning Magazine for you tomorrow coming up over the back fence on AM 1320 WFHR.